Great, awesome. Welcome. It's so nice to have you all here tonight. My name is Laura. I'm so delighted that you've made the big journey out here in the rain to be here for tonight's event. So thank you very much on the offset for doing that. Thank you. Woo, you did it. Overcoming rain. So tonight's presentation, Legacies, is with this year's Nocturne co-curators, Lux Habrich and Stephanie Yee. And it's this month's edition of our Creative Minds program. I want to thank you both for being here. As we get started today, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Through the peace and friendship treaties, which the Mi'kmaq, Wolastoq, and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725 and 26, there was no surrender of lands nor resources. Agreements within these treaties outline a path for ongoing relationships, between nations in mutual respect. The gallery supports arts, culture, and education on this land, and we strive for meaningful partnerships with all the peoples of this province as we continue to live and learn in Kjipuktuk. To that, I'd also like to recognize the more than 400-year history of communities of African descent and the presence of 50 African Nova Scotian communities throughout the region today. So as many of you may already be familiar with tonight's guests, I'm going to share some information with you about them. Stephanie is a second-generation Chinese-Canadian artist and cultural worker based in Kjipuktuk. Her education includes a BFA in Intermedia from NSCAD University, where she began her exploration into community and identity. With a practice rooted in storytelling, her work manifests as gatherings, performance, writing, installation, video, and playing with food. Which is very intriguing. Often beginning with familiar imagery, processes, and materials, Yee playfully interjects as a means of exploring and questioning preconceived notions. Welcome, Stephanie. Lux Habrich is a multidisciplinary visual artist, arts facilitator, and support worker of mixed Chinese and German heritage. Practicing in Kjipuktuk following an interdisciplinary BFA from NSCAD University, she is drawn to the immense storytelling capabilities in tactile processes as a means of unearthing buried intergenerational pain and power. Her interest in ritual objects and commemorative practice centers on diasporic experiences of loss and belonging, embodied hybridization in blood and spirit, and honoring the untold stories and unspoken legacies that live inside each of us. Welcome, Lux.
Thank you.
Our program, the Creative Minds series, hosts community leaders and creatives to respond to current events, exhibitions on view, or artworks in the gallery. Through conversation, music, poetry, or movement, these events aim to provoke new ideas and explore new things for people like you in the audience tonight. And this special edition is co-presented with Nocturne, so I'd like to give a special thanks to the Nocturne team and all the volunteers and board that make it happen every year, so thank you. So tonight's conversation is between two incredible people, and I'm delighted that you've taken time out of your very, very busy pre-festival schedule to be here with us tonight and to share some of the magic that happens in terms of the curation and the vision that you have for the festival, but also the care that you bring to the artists and the way that you do that through your leadership. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about tonight. So unfortunately, our ASL interpreter is sick, so we're sorry that that's the case tonight. Tonight's presentation is video recorded, just for your information. It is not live streamed, but it is video recorded. The guests, Lux and Stephanie, will speak together in conversation, and then we'll open it up to questions. So we invite you to have a nice conversation afterwards. And that's all from me. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I guess Stephanie and I were trying to figure out how to gather tonight, and we spent a lot of time questioning things together. So I figured we would start by just going through a series of questions and asking each other as a kind of an entry into conversation. So
yeah, this also functions as like our weekly check-in. So this is great. We're all about efficiency these days.
We're usually a lot closer together. There's no like seating between us, so this feels very formal. But this is a lot of the stuff that we'll be covering is a lot of things that we just we go through in our gatherings together.
Yeah, and also just to preface, I think that we definitely hit a point today where we're like, okay, no more logistics, let's just get back to thinking about why we're here. So excuse us if the shift is like, we're a little having troubles making that shift.
So Stephanie, starting our talk off today, what drew you to the idea of working with Nocturne?
So it wasn't until like this position that I realized that my very first Nocturne was the very first Nocturne ever. My very first Nocturne, like I just had moved to the city and I had been here for a month and was just like kind of blown away. I was like, oh, this is what it's like to live in a city that like loves art, great. And so I do, like, I think that image and that experience lives so deeply in me in terms of just like being able to see people showing up for art. I remember just being able to walk down Barrington Street, and at that point, Barrington Street was still, well, I can't remember if it was a ghost town or not, but it went through this period where just people were just full in a way that I don't remember, like in the 14 years that I've lived here, like just don't have that memory of people being downtown on Barrington Street. And so I think that image kind of like, maybe selfishly or something, kind of just like feeds into what you kind of expect for this year. But yeah, I think that just being able to, like Halifax holds a really important place in my heart in terms of a place where you can kind of like, you know, the amount of times that I experience people running into each other and just like having those very, I don't know, just like those impromptu kind of experiences and how those conversations like that you're not expecting, these unplanned instances, evolve into something like, I don't know, evolve into art. And I think that that's kind of the story of like Lux and I. It's a story of a lot of the things that came into like, building up like last year, this dragon that we created. That was also the case where it was just like taking like this impromptu kind of like run-in. The run-in, I guess in this case, was like me seeing the application and deciding that because we were in deep lockdown, there's nothing else I was going to do that weekend but maybe come up with an idea. And so just like being able to, the idea of this opportunity to kind of really reimagine how we experience these everyday instances and how that can build into the capacity of like creation was just really what I saw was so powerful about Nocturne. Also just like once I actually did apply last year and realized that, oh my gosh, I get to make this giant thing that I would never be able to do because I don't have a studio and because I don't know where I would put it. And that I had like this full support of a festival. It was kind of just really opened up my eyes to just being able to experiment with something new and being able to kind of just try something out and see what happens. And so I think that that's kind of the same energy that like brought me into like when we, after, just trying things out, like thinking about what we can do. That's like kind of where I kind of like reached out to Lux. Like we had kind of been following each other on Instagram for a while and was kind of just like, hey, like let's meet up for coffee, let's chat. And like Lux and I have only known each other for a year and a half maybe.
Not very, jumped in deep right away.
So, I don't know. I think it's just like being able to kind of see these possibilities in these everyday instances, and I think that vision is like so aligned with me, and like just how I want to exist in the world, but then also how I see Nocturne.
I'll take a stab at the question now.
What drew you to the idea?
I will actually, like really honestly, I think I've been so in awe of Nocturne, and I will say like night arts festivals in multiple different territories. I'm really drawn to how it's able to change the memory of a place. And really, even though it's generally lasting one day or a few days, how that memory can last through time and space, and how powerful that is. And but it's also such a public-facing festival, as opposed to, you think of gallery exhibitions or museum exhibitions, and I think I had always a very deep fear of participating for that reason. I make very vulnerable work, and when Stephanie asked me, hey, you've got all this sculptural knowledge, like, would you be interested in assisting this? Like, how do you feel about these ideas? And it ties very much to a lot of my lived experience too. So I thought, hey, why not? I'm not doing it alone. This feels like, and I feel very empowered in support roles. So we did that, and just really so taken by how well we worked together that it felt so. Anyways, it felt really exciting, I guess, drawing this now to like the role of curation when Stephanie once again, who was like, Lux, I'm thinking of doing this, do you want to join me? And I was, once again, and very transparently, I live with multiple disabilities and a lot of, I would never do something like this solo because it felt, I know how the deepness of how deep interdependence goes, and Stephanie asked me, I was like, co-leading something like this? Absolutely. It feels like this is the way that I would like to see things happening more. Different world views, lived experiences coming together, meeting each other at different intersections, and then, but also having a support network, right, to bounce ideas off of and hold each other accountable. So, anyways, I think that was the question, but so now, after years of like being in awe of what happens at Nocturne, but also like a deep fear, and then finding myself pretty involved at this point. I'll get more into some details later about how involved, but yeah. So that's
yeah. Do you mind if I ask a question of you first? Okay, cool. What were your hopes for the festival, or were, or are, and what have you experienced so far?
So I've never curated before. So I'm curating a big arts festival. Oh my goodness. So I've never curated before, but I've had many years experience being an arts facilitator and support worker and visual artist myself, and it felt like quite a unique opportunity, not only as past participating artists in the festival, so being able to see very clearly maybe things that we would want to switch up, but then also knowing that like what I could bring was a lot of care into curation, and then I started thinking about the role of curation, and especially historically, but now contemporarily, what is the role of curation? What is the responsibilities? Especially looking at a lot of the harms that can happen, thinking about access, thinking about exciting opportunities that we could, like, how could I use my unique skills and apply them in this way to such a public-facing festival? Yeah, just thinking a lot about care, and then how we could build. Well, I guess this also draws to like being in awe of, this is the 15th anniversary of this festival. That's a lot of alumni throughout the years, a lot of folks that have gone through this festival, holding a lot of knowledge of firsthand experience participating, and so it just seemed like there's a lot of knowledge out there. How do we gather folks and use that knowledge in a care-filled way moving forward? How do we not just, in a festival that is one day, a few days long every year, how do we keep some legacies, like some things continuing and growing strong, and that being the Artist Support Network that...
We'll talk a little bit more about it later.
Yeah.
It was really cool to kind of think about, so as part of, I think this year supported by AGNS, they opened up this opportunity to do like a curator in residence for this festival. And I think that was a really, like, I also, like, I think I've maybe only curated one thing, and that was back in school. And so, like, I really appreciated just having the opportunity to kind of, okay, let's figure this out. And, like, also just to figure it out with someone like Lux is, like, has been really, really lovely. But yeah, as we, like, it was funny to kind of, like, think about, yeah, when you apply, you have to propose a theme, and just like going for walks, just trying to think like, what would this theme be? Looking into the archives, looking at past themes, thinking about this 15-year marker, thinking about all of the things that Nocturne has done for the city or done for me. And I think, yeah, I think also just like being able to ultimately create a call to not just other artists, but like just to the community, to the public, to people to really own art and creation and thoughtfulness and reflection, like to own that. It's not just the responsibility of artists to think about, oh, how are we moving through the pandemic? How are we moving through difficulty and harm? It's not just the responsibility of these people, it's the responsibility of all of us. And it's a shared collective responsibility. And I think, yeah, just I think legacies, it was really important that this was an open invitation for everyone, but also like for us then to like have a hold on who are the people who we really see like upholding specific legacies. And I think it was a really exciting thing to kind of just, like I remember Lux had taken me to go do my road test, and we were driving back from Truro, and she's just like in the driver's seat, and I'm just like reading all, like, you know, reading Raven's statement, Raven, past curator who's here, and just, yeah, being able to go through all the different approaches to thinking about curation, and just like also understanding, yeah, what are our approaches, like what is the vision that we want to see. And yeah, again, like for us, it is curiosity. I think that Lux is one of the most curious people that I know, and like is one of the most experimental, and yeah, just being able to kind of, yeah, and collaborative. I think that was just like a huge thing to kind of think about, yeah, we don't move through this world alone, we move through it together. And so, yeah, thinking about legacies, it was, yeah, where was I going with this? I don't know. Yeah, I think that was like being able to kind of really have that statement to kind of feel like, okay, this is, yeah, it's on all of us. And try to write in a way that's, yeah, not shaming, or just to kind of be like, yeah, are you called to think about your legacy? And yeah, that was kind of just like one of my hopes, and I think it's definitely been so incredibly gratifying to like, when we went through like the selection process and just being able to like read applications and seeing like our words being put into just being like, this is my legacy, this is how I'm reflecting on, this is how, yeah, this is how I envision our city, and this is how I could play that role. And I think a lot of my hopes have already like come to be, and I'm really excited to kind of, yeah, for next week to kind of like really show all of the different works. And like there's a lot of, you're surrounded by Nocturne artists this year, and so it's kind of really exciting.
I would add too, Stephanie, that like both of us have a long history of working with community, right? So I think that came to the forefront as soon as we started, you know, really finalizing our curatorial theme and the write-ups. Like what was this that we wanted to share with the public, for folks to deeply think about and apply when making. Thinking about, I think, oh my gosh, where was it? Yeah, I think exactly how we all participate in creating and upholding culture, and that especially doing arts facilitation for so many years, I see how much trauma has been embedded in so many folks from a young age, even putting a pen to paper, right? And we all have creativity in us. It is this life force, this language, and we're cut off from it for such a young age. So I think a huge part of what we were thinking about is like, how do we give opportunity to folks that may not, that haven't necessarily gone to art school, that are, that are youth, that are, finding their voices, folks that experience multiple layers of marginalization. How do we open this up so that people, so larger groups of people can see themselves reflected in this vision? Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah. What have you experienced so far? Maybe.
Who's that?
I'm not sure if we. No, I. Yeah. Yeah, I think that like. Maybe we'll tie back into this, but I think that like, as like just continuing on with what Lux had talked about, yeah, just being able, like both people who like where being part of the arts community has been, and like being actively in, or like just working in arts friend centers and spaces in Halifax, like I think that, yeah, I think that there is just, I think that it is like just trying to think about like the moving towards like collectives and working together. I think that like I remember like back when I was like volunteering for like eye level and kind of like just all these different like because we're all like reliant on the same funding streams, just like the like endless like competition for money and just trying to see like, yeah, how do, like it sucks that we can't actually grow. We're just like having to, yeah, figure out how we get that money. And it's, yeah, I don't know, just being able to kind of like coming back to like public art, coming back to community art, it's just like such a beautiful model to kind of really free ourselves from like that gallery model to kind of just, I don't know, like there's like pluses and minuses, but it has been like really exciting to kind of work in this, with this festival, because we can really look at, just focus on the creation and look at being like, okay, cool, we are greenlighting this project, we will support you in finding that venue to create that work, and just like, yeah, like, I think that that has just been like such an incredible like, yeah, I don't know, just like other outlet like to kind of exist beyond, yeah, I don't know really what this song's going about. I'm just throwing those words out there. Yeah.
Do you want to do,
yeah.
what have you learned about artist needs so far through this process?
Yeah. So having had, I mean, that has been the other incredible thing to like learn from this perspective as curator, to kind of really learn about like this festival and organization as a whole, and just like thinking about like, in 2017, that's when I was like first an artist with Nocturne. I was an anchor artist. And then actually that was like, I think maybe one of the first years that it was also a co-curation. Mark, can you confirm? Yeah. Yeah, that was also like like a co-curator with like Emily Lawrence and Anna Sprague. And then this was my second time participating as an artist. And I think it was like really incredible to see, like from like the perspective as an artist, the type of support that, like just how the festival was growing to better support artists in the community, and like also just grow the community in general by like bringing in like, other artists from other cities and countries. And but like that to say is like, I think that it was last year when I started to kind of really understand, well, just kind of like, I was like really aware of different supports that I was like, oh, it would have been cool if this thing existed, or this thing existed, because like, yeah, as soon as I realized that I wanted to hang the dragon, I was like, what am I gonna hang it from? Like, I know that I wanted to do this thing, but how? Like, how's that gonna happen? And I was like, oh, it's gotta be scaffolding. And then I was like, crap, I have no idea. I've never worked with scaffolding before, and that was like really scary to kind of like I don't know. I was like lucky for me, like I was able to because I've lived here for 14 years. I was able to kind of just like reach out to other artists that I knew who had worked with scaffolding and was able to kind of just like gain enough confidence to be like, okay, this seems maybe feasible. I'll put the application in. But that was like really lucky. It was really contingent on my own personal network and community and my ability to kind of just like reach out to people. And for like when thinking about reimagining the city with art, it's just like that is a scale that many artists do not have like the ability to do. Like if you have a studio, it's probably not very large. So like how do you even make the leap to making work that is now suddenly for the public? And so like that was a huge realization of just being like, okay, yeah, artist accessibility and artist support, it's also so much of it is like mentorship and just like being able to build connections and build like build those connections. And so that's part of what really, like when we applied, what was also really clear to us was that we wanted to start like an artist support network, which we were able to kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of happening.
First year, you know.
It's piloting. So yeah, but I think that it's been really cool to kind of like, again, like, you know, like we're asking other people what what your legacy is. And I think that's been a really cool thing to think about. Like, yeah, what is our legacy, and like maybe being able to like start this network and like create these processes. And I don't know, like I think Lux can talk a little bit more about that. Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to address too that like when we think about mentorship and consultation for like such a, you know, some of these projects are like enormous in terms of scale and logistics, but also like sometimes we need mentorship for like emotional support, or you know, like a practice that's very specific, maybe even cultural or conceptual support. So really trying to like open up the way that we understand holding and like offering kind of like growing a support network really. And but then in my writings I was thinking like you know, how do you find artists that are doing similar things to what you're doing? It can be so vulnerable, and then this, you know, what this can offer is like, you know, some assurance, some guidance, some questioning, and I think all of that is really rooted in us working together and realizing like, you know, I certainly don't know all the answers, I don't, but, you know, and it's like coming together and being like, oh, we have even more questions about access and needs and care. Should I jump into my access? Does that feel?
Yeah, maybe I might just add one, like something that Lux had mentioned earlier is just like talking about, there's like all this like kind of like through like Nocturne. Even it's funny to kind of imagine like past Nocturne artists as like Nocturne alumni, but thinking about like the collective knowledge that exists from Nocturne alumni, and like even just thinking about like Melanie, who is our new Nocturne ED, is here, and like Yeha, our artistic director, who's like, you know, that's a brand new role, and just thinking about like all of this growth and just funding and all of these different things. Like, I mean, what's like wild to me is that like for the longest time Nocturne existed as a festival without anyone in a paid position, and then Lindsay had it. And then just thinking about all of the knowledge and know-how that she had, and luckily she's still working in like Nocturne adjacent. But like, yeah, I think that there is so much that could be built up of just by just like thinking about what is already here, what do we already have, what do we already know, and collecting that, and like, I think that there's like, I don't know, like there's just like a lot of possibility that could happen, and like if we had the capacity to even like collect and build off of that, which oftentimes we don't, which is, I don't know, just unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it is, I mean, and yeah, so all of these kind of thoughts, like they really did emerge from looking back and seeing how it's grown over the years, right? To have like paid positions for folks, to be able to pay artists and support them through, you know, like now we've really expanded like access fees too. So, you know, like the very real nature about art making is that it takes a big toll on your body as well. So, you know, slowly building in all these things into like the reality of the full nature of how one makes things and shares things.
Oh, I was wondering if you wanted to share a little bit about the talk that you did.
My access workshop. So I think it's been incredible how fast the time has gone. We joined May 1st. March 1st. Oh my gosh. we joined March 1st, which is wild. And you know, it feels like the role has been it's constantly shifting, right? It was a lot of dreaming at first, and then it was kind of trying to put that into application, trying to put strategies, lock things in place, and then now I find it's shifting even more in this last week to be about you know, very hands-on support, and also like emotional support. So it's been an incredible journey to watch how the role keeps shifting, but then to also see how when I first joined, I knew that even in the interview process, I was very blunt. I was like, I love Nocturne, but I've struggled over the years because of access needs. Last year there was an artwork and there were no closed captions and there was no bench nearby, and I was really struggling. And as you know, as a cultural worker, and it's important, you know, like, and it just to not have that access really hurt. And that's just my lived experience. I can't speak for other folks with other access needs, you know. But now being within the org, I see why that happens, right? There's just so many moving parts. So thinking about how can we, when I accepted the role, what can we do to try and maybe try and cover some more of those gaps, things that fall between the cracks. So at the beginning, and then the time moved so fast from March, and now so just last week, a dear friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine who is studying contemporary arts and disabilities, who lives with chronic illness and is a curator and artist themselves, joined in as a guest speaker on an access workshop that we were hosting for all Nocturne participating artists and orgs. And it was wild because, very similarly to Stephanie, you know, we talk so much and think so much about different things, and then really realizing, oh, this is like very substantial, valuable information, I think, that can be expanded upon. This is what I do with this other person, Adele Rudo. So we just talk about access and disabilities in the arts all the time. And so it felt very natural to be like, oh, would you like to sit in on this session? And so Adele came from it from a very academic standpoint, but also sharing their lived experience, and is working through Lake Carlton adjacent to the National Gallery right now. So we're like, whoa, this feels like a very big connection that we can keep implementing some of these very technical skills that we were able to address, like the things that we could apply, like closed captioning, right, signage, having ASL wherever possible, but then also like disability dreaming. So a lot of it was about as well, like, you know, what does access mean? Everyone has access needs. Some are contradictory. How do we just try and maybe have longer hours for different needs? How do we make this, prioritize this within our programming so that it's funded better, and and also recognizing, like, because it's access, nobody knows best what somebody else is experiencing. So and also in a changing world, right, with climate crisis and pandemics and moving obstacles, and how do we, like access needs are something that are transient. So that felt really, really rewarding and something that I wanted to do from day one joining on this. And so even though it felt, kind of close to the end, where we're coming up so close and maybe folks can't apply everything, because of course it's a lot of labor to ask on an artist to be able to consider all these things, right? So, but this feels like really beautiful seeds for the future.
Yeah, I think that like overall, that has been the thing of just like, in reflecting about like what we want to share about this talk, or like, just like, how things are going, just like, I think that we had like a lot of like hopes and dreams that we wanted to kind of be able to accomplish like during this period of time, but then, ultimately realizing, obviously we have like limits, and what are things that we can like work to plant, what are seeds that we can work to plant. And I think that I'm going back to thinking about legacies and having that as an open invitation. I think that that's like, hopefully like having that reflection coupled with the work that you're going to be able to see can be something that can help to plant more seeds and move things. And I think that like I don't know. I don't know. I just like scribbled this line that I forgot that I was like wanted to say. I don't know how to feed it back in, but like I don't know. Like going back to thinking about these run-ins, these instances of like kind of like possibilities. Like I think that what has been so rewarding about this opportunity has been being able to work with artists that we maybe like we're like like personally or artistically we're like, ooh, maybe one day we can collaborate. I don't know, but like being able to kind of call them in on these different activities. Like Arjun was one of the who's here, was one of the first artists that came to mind, and it was like I think that like what was like unconsciously said by us was just like, ooh, I really like these themes, I really like how they do this or whatever, and just like, I wonder if, and I think it's just like, I think that's how I approached you. It's just like, oh, I really like the way that you write about your work, the way that you like your like artistic aesthetic sensibility. I wonder if, and I think that like that wondering has really built us to where we are, and I think that ultimately. I'm just really, really grateful that we've had this opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And thankful for the labor that everybody has put in. Really, truly, it's been needless to say, like recognizing the obstacles of past years and the obstacles of curation in past years, and the ever changing, especially a pandemic situation, just really appreciative and feeling really like still not burnt out, which is incredible because I'm seeing, like get there pretty close, but also being like seeing so like feeling a lot of hopefulness in like also like having each other to like uplift each other when we're feeling really like, oh, can I still do this, and then because we're stronger for that, I feel like I can show up better for artists too. When I see other folks being like, whoa, I'm publicly sharing this very vulnerable thing, whew, and then being able to show up better there. So, yeah. Is that it?
I feel like we're gonna wait. Yeah. I'm not checking my notes.
Are you gonna do your last question, or is that?
Oh, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, we covered it.
Anybody have any questions for Lux and Stephanie?
I can start it, yeah. How did you find the transition from being a Nocturne artist to being the Nocturne curators? Like how?
I really enjoyed it. Like, I think that, it's just like, it's just like, you know that show, like, How It's Made? Like, I feel like that's like my brain to kind of just be like, oh, okay, how we can kind of like, I don't know, these are the hoops that we have to go through to work with the city to like be able to work at this like, you know, at this location, or like this is how like, I don't know, how you like market yourself, or like just like, yeah, get the word out. I don't know, it's just like I think that like, I don't know, I just like should trust myself more about like how, like, I don't know, like my decisions, but it's just like, it's always just really interesting. Like I still feel like an emerging artist, so it's just like, yeah, definitely, yeah, weird to kind of be like, wow, I can't believe I'm in this role, to be able to like help support and foster other people's careers. Like it just, yeah, I don't know, it's felt good, it's felt really, it's felt a lot of things, but yeah, I don't know, I think that being able to kind of like do this with Lux and like, yeah, I guess, yeah, again, like us pepping, like doing those pep talks, and I think that's been helpful. But yeah, I don't know, like Lux, how are you feeling about it?
Oh, I mean, I think I kind of, you're just so bold and like just like, let's do it. And I'm like, okay. I go along, and then every time, you know, like if you asked me a year ago what I'd be doing right now, the answer would never be curating Nocturne. That's like, maybe I would have been like, oh, deep fear, but you know, so it really is incredible and very much in the same way I see myself as, you know, an emerging artist, still kind of like trying to build some kind of foundation within myself, within the way that I understand navigating the world, and then never saw curation in that, and so not just within the festival curation, but then just the role and responsibilities of curation, which I really sat with, and I guess all this to say too is that you know, when you're the artist making the work, you're using some part of one part of your being to do that, right? But then in curation now, it's been the lessons that have come with it sometimes are, you know, we want to work with this venue because it would allow for, you know, it's juggling, right? Like, and really trying to like, how can we honor somebody's voice, the authenticity of somebody's work and practice without compromising like really important components, when especially working with the city, that's not always possible. So it's about making some tough decisions and things, and I was like, I didn't know I was really good at dealing with tough decisions, but I found myself surprised at what I was able to do a lot of the time. So it's been, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, logistics brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, in art festivals, as many of us know, artists have a chance to work with very new materials, experiment with practices and genres that maybe they haven't before, and kind of scale up, but not necessarily always scale up, but just kind of take it to a different dimension. How do you feel that impacted your curatorial role in terms of, say, like managing expectations, or like helping artists, you know, kind of generate art that even if they are established artists, you know, may take time to kind of adjust?
Yeah. Oh, we.
Really good question.
Great question. Yeah, I feel like we. That was really funny to kind of like when we were thinking about. So the anchor projects. We had 4 projects, and when we were trying to decide who we wanted to work with, we were trying to find like a good mix of just being like, okay, what are we asking of these different projects? What type of support are we able to actually give? And I think that one of the projects, we're working with Letitia Frazier, and it was definitely one of those, definitely one of those instances where I was like, oh, I really love the way that she works with textiles, and that she like works with painting, and the way that she really calls and brings in the stories of the community. I wonder if she wants to work with installation and video. And so that was definitely a project where we were just like, okay, like we are going to figure out, like, when we're out, like, working with the budget, who can, like, you know, who can we actually rely on to kind of just be like, okay, we're not doing any video.
Yeah.
Say this as I'm like editing a video. Yeah, just like being able to be like, okay, we're hiring a technician specifically to handle all of this stuff so that we know that this can be the person that Letitia talks to about video. We're like, you know, we're talking to all of these different people. So I think it was definitely, we had to put a little bit more of a facilitating support in all these different ways. And also, I think that was also a big part of, as we're thinking about, you know, big festival, like success and like perfect and all of these things, I think that was also really baked in, like, to our approach of just thinking about, like, okay, ultimately, what are we valuing? We're valuing experimentation and the opportunity to do something new, and like being able to really question, like, okay, cool, if this thing doesn't really come through as we had hoped, what does that look like? And just being, I think that was a constant conversation with a lot of the works to kind of just figure out, you know, this is the dream, but how can we also make room for all of the other realities that can kind of exist in that process? And yeah, I think it was definitely, I think the hope was that, like, the artist support network would have been able to provide a lot more mentorship in a way that, yeah, for artists who are not working with mediums that they're familiar with, to kind of really allow to kind of give that support. But I mean, yeah, I think that, you know, there's definitely been a lot of like check-ins from us, and like I think those are ways that we've like tried to navigate that.
I'll share a few instances that really resonate too, where, so for Letitia, for example, who's in textiles and painting, very like hands-on activities, to be doing something so, I guess, hands-off, right? I remember this one instance where, you know, we're trying to talk about install logistics, and, you know, it's always me asking Letitia, well, how do you envision this install? Like, how does this feel good for you? Letitia's like, well, how do you? Because I don't do install, I don't know. And then so I was like, oh, right, well, okay. Then my artist side came in. I was like, actually, like, I think all that component, so really recognizing like all these different avenues, these different paths, these different experiences that I have within me from very different community involvement, my own practice became very useful in these instances. Another thing I'd really love to share too, because I do think it is a huge source of pride that we're both really should be feeling right now, is that, so working with anchor artists, is that absolutely like managing expectations, what is realistic within this time frame, hiccups, you know, hurricanes, pandemics, all this kind of stuff, what is possible. And, you know, so far it's been, we've reached this point where the artist is I can see how this project that's going to be shared is fueling projects in the future. And I really couldn't ask for anything. Like, that is so beautiful how it's like, that's how I feel that we succeeded in curation, because it's literally not just opportunity wise, but like fueling the practice, the thinking, the making, all of that. So that, like, that feels so, like, almost to the point of tears, where you're like, wow, like I was able to help and support that, you know, that coming to a place. So yeah.
I've got a question. Don't worry, it's not about logistics. I was thinking about going in the meeting, like, anyway.
What about the abstracts?
Yeah. Actually, like, so, and maybe, you know, just reflecting on that last thought and going back to the theme of legacies, is there any specific project, artist, moment, anything that really expanded or challenged your idea of legacies, or in any way? Sorry.
Yeah, that's a big one. Wow.
If not, you know, I think, you know, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, just in terms of.
I mean, I definitely think that's an ongoing thought throughout all of this, is recognizing like how legacies are made, and it happens within us individually, but we're all interdependent, so then it also happens in a community, and so really, I guess, it feels like a constant negotiation, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's not, like, yeah, I feel like the question is like geared towards like art and projects, but it's like, for me, it's like, I don't know, what I'm gravitating towards is like, yeah, just like thinking about, like non-art nocturne partners. Yeah. No, I guess like it's just like thinking about like the legacy of just like I guess, yeah. Well, what I'm thinking about it is just like there's the role that the artists are doing, which is like so incredible. So like reading the applications to see so much depth of personal reflection coming in through all of this work, and just what is like, yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, just like what I'm really sitting with is just thinking about the work that this, yeah, all of this work is for, or the communities that this work is for. It's just like, will they actually get to see it? And I think it's just like trying to figure out like, it shouldn't just be coming from us, like a Nocturne trying to figure out ways to get people to see this work. And so like, I don't know, the legacy is like just trying to figure out how can we build other partners exterior to the festival to kind of really, yeah, bring people to this work. And
I mean, that's tied to access too, right? Like,
yeah.
so often, I mean, even when so much fell to the side because we had to focus in on what the curation meant. But you know, it's like it's so central to downtown Halifax. You know, like what about folks, which really talks about class and then different histories and gentrification, right? Like, how do we create that access for folks that you know, who like how this cultural event every year is like, it is so powerful at like reforming our internal selves. So like, how do we give this experience to folks that when there's huge real access barriers? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like also just trying to like wrap my brain to kind of like answer your question about the actual art.
Hey, this is not really a question. I guess it's just a comment expanding on what you're saying about, I feel like definitely in terms of just what you're talking about, it really goes against the idea of like solo genius artists and like even like working as a pair and co-curating, like really like goes against that, which I love, because like that doesn't work. And like in a city like Halifax where like there's just so many artists, and like we should really be working as a collective to make this beautiful thing. But that was just a comment, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we felt similarly. And
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know, just like, yeah, it was kind of a funny thing to kind of like one of the requests from HRM, like, was to make something like big.
the word was spectacle.
Yeah.
They wanted spectacle.
They wanted spectacle for the anchor projects, and yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we're bringing it. Like, I mean, like, as much as like I hate spectacle, but like I think that like we're going big this year, and I'm really excited to kind of see like, yeah, I don't know, maybe like, yeah, I'm proud of all of the anchor projects. I'm proud of all of the collectives, and yeah, I think that like, you know, there was a thematic, like, you know, the theme can be interpreted in so many different ways, but something I'm really, really proud of is just like the values behind the theme were just also really like, yeah, they're also just, it's just really there. And so it's, yeah, I'm just really excited.
It felt really powerful to use like all the connections that I formed for years of working in the community, like that I've been able to go into these communities and really try and offer up this theme to in like tangible ways, and seeing like McPhee Center for Creative Learning, for example, their fall programming is centered around the idea of legacies and asking youth to think about what that means. And then there's going to be a collective show at the center, so that feels really kind of like, of course, like, you know, they're doing radical things in this space, really beautiful works, and that like are thinking about self, community, you know, the world inside and outside of them, and like, of course, this is a like creative cultural value. Why not? Why is this not available during such a big festival? So, yeah. Maybe that was tangent. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Lux and Stephanie? If I could just say one thing that I'm enjoying and hearing about your talk is that, you know, as we're like reflecting on 15 years of Nocturne and the sort of shape of it over the years, and more recently the shape of it, it often feels like in arts programming that like growth has to be a certain way, like maybe it's in partnerships or sponsorships or spectacle. You know, and what I love hearing about your legacy that you're leaving is the value that you're putting on the people that make Nocturne what it is, the artists and the people who come out to see it. So I think that the care that you're putting in is like such an incredible legacy to be leaving for the arts community in Halifax, because it just puts that at the core of what you're doing. And I think that in thinking about legacy too, it's not this thing that happened. It's like a lived thing. Like we're always,
It's ongoing.
it's ongoing. Like when you're like, I don't know which artwork is the most responsive to legacies. Like we don't know that yet because we're still living it, and we'll ask you again in 2 weeks. But so I just, again, it's all out there, and I just want to thank you for the care and the sensitivities that you're bringing to the work that you're doing as curators, co-curators, the strength that you're feeding off of each other. It's felt, I think, in the community, and I'm very grateful as like a member of the arts community at large here for the work that you've done. So, and I want to thank you for being here tonight. I mean, it's so nice.